All right, good morning. Morning. How's everyone doing? Hope everyone is well. Karibuni sana. Welcome to another Afriforex daily analysis session. Forex is the game. Afriforex is the team. John Bogwa is the name. We also do have Mitch. He is here. He is working in the back office. So if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. Of course, that goes out to the guys who are here on Zoom. For the guys who are watching us on YouTube, if you want to interact with us, then I guess you'll have to find your way here. There should be a link in the video description that should give you a Zoom link that you should be able to follow, and you should find your way here. But karibuni sana. And of course, remember to like and subscribe for the guys who are watching us on YouTube. So, apologies for starting off a couple of minutes late. There were a number of fundamentals that are coming out right now, major news events for the Great British Pound. So we did need to figure things out on that front. You can see some CPIs and some PPIs that have just come out right now. So we did have to look at it with the team to figure out where to put the Great British Pound, but at least that's sorted. So the watch list for today is going to be looking something like this. So feel free to take a screenshot of that. So you can see Wednesday, the 18th of September. You can see that we do have the yen joining the sell side of things, but everything else does end up remaining put. So we'll end up looking at the currency pairs that we did have yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list this morning. So we'll start off with the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, and also what we were expecting. Of course, in the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. So I had pointed out that we did need to see the market break to the downside and hold. You can see that the market did attempt to break quite strong, which was good, but unfortunately we couldn't get a hold within here for us to look for the sells. You can see that the market went to the upside quite aggressively. So that meant that the buyers were definitely coming in, and the sellers, of course, they had seemed like they were coming in earlier during the Asian session, and also somewhere within this region, unfortunately, couldn't sustain the price beneath this region to the downside. And of course, once the buyers came up and the market held to the upside, unfortunately, at that point in time, there was no buy. And you can't see that there was really no slowdown within that region right there. So unfortunately for us yesterday, there wasn't really any sell on the euro against the Japanese yen. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. For this one, we're also trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Unfortunately, there was really nothing to tell us to look for sells. You can't clearly see the three regions that we had. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So we did want to see the market break beneath this region to the downside and hold for us to look for the sells. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And you can see that similar situation with what we've seen on the other yen pair. So the market really took off from within this region. There was really nothing to tell us to look for sells there. Of course, can't see that the market has gone to the upside. So unfortunately for us for today, also not a currency pair that we will be trying to see whether we can get any trades. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs that we do have for review. So we can end up looking at a couple of screenshots that we did end up getting. So we'll start off with this one from Alvin. So shout out to you for this trade, Alvin. So if you're here, or if you're watching from YouTube, or if you're going to be watching the rebroadcast on YouTube, shout out to you. So this is on the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So I can see that you got a sell on this one, somewhere within this region right here, which was a good area to look for the sell, even if those bars were coming up quite aggressive. But at least due to the fact that you did get the sell within a seller's region, at least that did end up paying off. And I can see that the market did come down. Of course, possibly could have also gotten the trade maybe much better within this region right here. But you did have to survive this before the market came to the downside. But like I pointed out, at least you did get the sell within a seller's region. So this is good. The only problem with this trade is that I don't know where your stop loss is, because considering the fact that price is already down within here, and you got the entry high up there, in case the market does end up turning back, then this would be quite a painful gain, to actually end up giving away or giving back to the market. So at this point in time, when the market is down here, maybe even your stop loss could be somewhere within this region right here. So in terms of entry perfect, stop loss, maybe just tightening it up, just a little bit, and you should be good to go. And of course, managing, within areas where you do find the opposite party could potentially come in, where the buyers areas are. So you also did get a similar trade on the euro against the US dollar. You can see correlation was in play in your analysis yesterday, and you did get both trades more or less within the same time, within the same areas. So this was a good area in terms of looking for the sells. Hopefully you did have a stop loss on this trade. It's just that maybe we can't see it here, but it's definitely something we always advocate for. You always need to make sure that you do have a stop loss. So hopefully you had a stop loss on entry, maybe higher than this, but when the market did start to calm down, of course, your stop loss could also be somewhere within this region, just beneath this area in case the market does need to spike back up, maybe just to do some sort of a retest, within this area before it does continue coming to the downside. So also for this one, a good entry, money management, maybe just tightening it up a little bit, but you should be good to go. But shout out to you for that, Alvin, and of course, keep up the good work. So we also did get a screenshot from Bravin, as always, and we're always happy to see your screenshots here. So this is on silver, as always. So I can see that you got a buy on this one, somewhere down within this region right here. This choppy mess was happening. I don't know if you got it when the market was breaking to the upside, but nonetheless, at least when the market did move to the upside, I can already see that your stop loss is already within break even, which is good. Hopefully you did watch out for this region at the top, even if you are targeting areas much, much higher, because I think that's where you are targeting, or maybe higher, because definitely can't see your take profit within that region. But shout out to you for that, Bravin. Always happy to see your screenshots here, and of course, do keep up the good work. So remember, guys, if you do get any trades, whether good or bad, feel free to share them with us. I mean, in fact, that could be the only token of appreciation that you should possibly end up giving us, because we're doing this for you guys free of charge, giving you advice and valuable information. So, of course, you can also end up returning the favor just by sending in your screenshots, just to see that the message and the information that we're giving you here is getting to you loud and clear. So you can send them in to us via WhatsApp. Our contact details should be there on the chat box, but you also can reach out to us via the same contact details, and we'll see how best we can end up helping you. So shifting gears into matters today. So for the sake of guys who are joining us a bit late, this is what the watch list is looking like today. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. So we'll be mixing and matching up the euros, the cards, and the yens versus everything else on the buy side. On the fundamental front, there's going to be, I think, a lot of fireworks that's going to be going on the charts today. So you can see that there's already been quite a number of news events that have already happened or taken place. And you can see that some of them are high impact, like the GBPs. We've already started seeing that they're already moving. We'll see what happens. You can see that we have CPIs. And you know that anytime there are CPIs, then it means that the charts are definitely going to be moving. So you can see the CPIs right there for the Great British Pound. CPIs for the Euro are going to be coming out much later on. And looking forward, of course, you can see that at around 9 p.m. our time, East African time, you can see that we will be having the interest rate decisions for the US. So that means that we should possibly also end up expecting a lot of fireworks, happening on the USDs at around that time. So just make sure that, if you're in on trades, just manage and wait and see what does end up happening. So that's what the forecast is going to be looking like. So just make sure that you're ready, buckle up, so that in case things do end up becoming a bit turbulent, then at least you will be good to go. So we'll start off with the euros and mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So this is also a currency pair that we had yesterday. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative was somewhere down within here, and semi-aggressive conservative within this region. Yesterday, when we were looking at the charts in the morning, price was still contained within this range right here. And I did point out that I was expecting some sort of a spike to happen. When the market came back in here, you can see that I'd set an alert there because I was thinking maybe price was just going to tap in within that region, possibly end up looking for some sales. The spike wasn't as big as I thought, but I did expect maybe some sort of a spike, not this tiny thing that happened there, but nonetheless, that I guess was good enough. You can see the sellers came in quite aggressively, pushed the market to the downside. The market still came back in within this region right here. And like we point out, market structure is very important. You can see that the sales were definitely working off this region right here. And I think even in the morning when we were having a chat with the team, Mitch was pointing out that he got quite a number of selling opportunities at the top here, and the market is now coming down, which is good. So for this one, for today, the levels are the same. So the market has just broken the structure. So we are still waiting for a bit more confirmation because the market still can't come back into the upside. You can see that price has been here before, still been pushed back into the upside. So we're more or less somewhere within that region. At least right now, it seems to some extent like it's starting to hold. But of course, we'll be waiting to see what happens. We could get some good selling opportunities within here. You can see that the market has breached to the downside, come back into the upside, done some sort of a retest, within that area there. To some extent, gives us that confirmation that we need, just to know that the structure has broken to the downside. So if we do get the market, either it could be one of two things, right? So either you could get the sells down within this region right here. The market breaks again and you actually end up getting the sell within here, because you can see that this region has also held, for quite an extended period of time before. Maybe even in the past, if we go back, you will see that it's definitely a level. So if we do break beneath here, you could be good to go. But of course, if the market does come back in within here, then I will also be trying to see whether I can get, some sells within here. Maybe if the market does even end up attempting, to actually come back in within this range right here, but it does actually end up being unsuccessful, then I will definitely be looking for sells there. But we do need to see the aggressive sellers coming in. I mean, if we can't blast through this region quite aggressively, then there's bound to be a problem. It's better off to actually maybe end up scratching your trade or closing a good amount of the trade within here. Reason being, if you don't, then there's a possibility you could be taken for a ride within this region right here. It could just actually end up being taken whereby you actually end up bouncing off between the region at the top and this region right here, and it could actually end up getting frustrating, only for the sellers to actually end up deciding to go for a much better price, if they can't conquer the buyers who are going to be sitting within here, and that means that the market will get back into the range. So you see, at that point in time, you're better off maybe scratching, waiting, because if it does come back in within the range, then you could possibly end up getting the market coming back in all the way at the top. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember, like I pointed out on the fundamentals, we do have CPIs for the euro. So definitely we'll be waiting to see what ends up happening, with the euros, if the big boys are going to be coming in at around midday or thereabout. So moving on into the next one. This is the euro against the Great British Pound. Now, for this one yesterday, we were also trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you can see the three regions right there and an illustration of what we were expecting. Unfortunately, things didn't really work out like we wanted to see. You can see that the market was just fooling around within this region. We wanted to see the market break and hold to the downside of this area before we could execute some sells. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. You can see that every time the market broke to the downside, the buyers were always pushing it back to the upside. So we couldn't get a proper hold, to look for the sells within there. And you can see that at 3 or thereabout during the US session, around 4:30, the market took off to the upside, nothing to tell us to look for sells there. You can see how aggressively, those buyers really pushed the market to the upside, and also nothing to really tell us to look for sells within here. But it's something to do with the Great British Pound pairs. Yesterday, they were showing a lot of weakness. So right now, based on the fact that the CPIs have come out, hopefully we should get some strength coming in. And you can see that this one has already pushed beneath this level to the downside. So we just need to see a hold within here. Hopefully, if we do get a hold within this region right here, then hopefully this should be a good sell to come down, hopefully all the way to within this region. I think this one, if we do go up a higher time frame, you will see that the market is ranging. So in terms of a proper location to look for the sells, or within a good region, top of the range, hopefully we could end up coming down all the way to within here. But just make sure that you also do watch out for this area where you could manage your trade. I mean, if we don't get an aggressive push coming down, like the same way the bars push to the upside and the market starts to hold within here, might actually not be a very bad idea to actually manage your trade at that point in time. So do watch out for that. Also remember, in case the market breaks once again to the upside and goes above here, then it starts to move away at that point in time. There's no point of looking for, any selling opportunities, because, the structure has broken to the upside and the range, we're already out of the range. So there's really no point looking for those selling opportunities unless the market does come back into the downside. So moving on to the next one. This is the euro against the Australian dollar. For this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you also can see the three areas right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when you're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. You remember that this one, the market had just started to come down to the downside. And I did point out that maybe, hopefully, the market does come back in within this region, could possibly end up looking for some proper selling opportunities. Unfortunately, the market didn't come back in within there. This was a setup that I was really looking at and waiting, looking forward to, and you can see that I also set an alert there. The market just came back in within there. You can see the number of spikes that happened within there, just came shy of that area and continued to come to the downside. Unfortunately, missed out on it, but nonetheless, at least the market did come to the downside. So today, we'll be trying to see whether we can get some sells within these three areas right here. So hopefully you can take note of these three regions right here. So you can see right now the sellers seem like they've already come in. It's not a good idea to jump in on the sells right now, just because you're seeing these 3 or 4 bars, red bars coming down, and you think that it might be a good idea to actually jump in on the sell. It's not, because if you look at where we are right now, we're more or less within some sort of a buyer's region. I mean, even if we were to put a level within here, you definitely see that we have 2 SNR somewhere within this area. This could be a probe. The market broke up once again to the upside. Maybe coming back in within here, you could find the buyer still reacting off that area. So the best area to wait for the sells is higher up within that region right there. So just make sure that you watch out for that. The reason why we have this region at the bottom is because if you do go up to the 1 hour time frame, you will see that the buyers are actually sitting somewhere within this region. Of course, even this area is still a level, but this one right here maybe could be a more major level. And that's the reason why you can see that even earlier today, the market did actually bounce off that region. So that's mainly the area you should be targeting. But of course, when you start getting into this region right here, just make sure that within this area, you should be getting ready to take profits. So make sure that you do watch out for that. So moving on into the next one, this is the euro against the Swiss franc. For this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some sells. You can see the 3 regions that I had pointed out and what I was expecting to see before I could execute some sells. Wanted to see the market break to the upside, maybe come back in. It did break to the upside within here, but unfortunately, we just couldn't get the market coming back in to the downside of this area. You know, to look for the sells, and you can see that off this area, the market bounced off to the upside quite aggressively, came back in all the way to within that region right there. Sellers showed up, but I guess it was towards the end of the day. You can see that the buyers slowed down. There wasn't really anything happening. Then today during the Asian session, that's when the sellers, have decided to show up. So for this one, a bit of patience will be needed. We're still more or less contained within the same areas that we're watching out for yesterday. So right now, this is not a good time to look for the sells. Hopefully the market does breach, beneath this region to the downside. We get a hold within there, maybe even some attempts of the buyers to actually push the market to the upside. You will get maybe some weeks inside bars, happening maybe somewhere within that region there and probes. Then at least at that point in time, we could try and see whether we could get some sells within there to come down. But right now, you're not really too sure whether the market could bounce off here to the upside. You could find that maybe even during the London session, the market could be on the pullback phase, come back in within this region. Then maybe during the US session, maybe at around 3:30, 4:30, you could find the market back in within here for the market to come down. But also remember, watch out for 12 when the CPIs happen. It's going to be interesting to see what the big boys actually do with that one right there. So just make sure that you watch out for it. So the next one and the last euro pair is the euro against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Can't clearly see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. And you can see also an illustration of what we're expecting. The market broke to the upside, came back in, held. Unfortunately, it's not yet fully come back in within this region. And that's the reason why we still have this area right here, because there's a high probability and a possibility that the market could be coming back in within that region. So hopefully the buyers can really struggle and get somewhere within this area. I think this could be a good area in terms of looking for the sells coming down. Of course, watch out for that region right there. And hopefully we do get the sellers really coming in, with a lot of momentum, then hopefully we should be getting the market coming down all the way to within this region right here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But remember that in case the market breaks and holds above this region to the upside, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us on the euro against the US dollar. So hopefully you've taken note of that. And of course, remember to watch out for the times 10, 3, and 4:30. And no matter what you do, always make sure that you do trade with a stop loss and stick within your risk parameters. No matter how good a setup looks, don't over risk. Things can always go wrong. So moving on into the next set of currency pairs. So we're going to look at the Canadian dollar pairs. We're going to mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys, and you can't see the three areas right here that I had pointed out. In the morning, price was here. We're expecting price to possibly come back in within here before it goes to the upside. It took off to the upside, and you can't see that eventually it still did end up coming back in within this area at around 430. So you just needed to be patient. And you can see that within this area, in as much as it took a lot of time, to really turn around within this area right here, but eventually during the Asian session, the market has taken off to the upside. It's also not very uncommon considering the fact that the New Zealand dollar is here in this particular one. And of course, it's more active during the Asian session. So I guess the Asian big boys have pushed the market to the upside. We've hit some sort of a ceiling there. Don't look for buying opportunities right now. Wait and see if you could get the market coming back in within here. It still can. There's a possibility that it can because, to some extent, it looks like the market is starting to range. So you still could get some buying opportunities down within here. You just need to be patient. If the market doesn't come back in within there, then the next proper buy will definitely be somewhere within here to the upside. After the market breaks to the upside and we get a proper breach, then a pullback and a hold, then I guess the next buy could be here. But right now, it's too risky to look for the buy. So also watch out for the region at the bottom. Also an area where you could find the market coming back all the way to. So if it does, then at least you should be ready for that as well. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buys. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when I'm looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So it came down, bounced off this area right here, attempted to go to the upside, broke above there, kind of held to the upside, but just couldn't go before the sellers came in. But this is something to do with the Great British Pound. Like I pointed out yesterday, the GBPs were showing a lot of weakness. On this one, of course, you'd have expected the market to go to the upside, which means that we're expecting, the Canadian dollar to really end up showing a lot of weakness. But when you see the Great British Pound pulling back and the rest of the Canadian dollar pairs generally continued moving to the upside, then you start to get some questions, in your mind. So is it that the Great British Pound is weaker than the Canadian dollar? But based on the CPIs that have come out, we'll wait and see if at least we'll end up getting some strength coming in on the Great British Pound. Not quite sure where the weakness is coming from, but we'll just have to wait and see. So the levels on this one are more or less the same. So let's wait and see what happens. There's a high probability price could still come back in within this region right here. If it does, then at least we should be ready, to possibly end up looking for the buys within this region right here to move to the upside. If not, seems like the buyers have come up quite aggressively. If they can get past these sellers, don't really look for the buys within this region because there's still a major SNR within here. You're better off at least looking for the buy to the upside of this area. This buy right here will give you less issues. So will this one. Any buys in between could generally give you a headache. So just make sure that you're well aware of those two areas right there. And of course, remember the red SNR. In case the market breaks beneath that region to the downside, then I guess at that point in time, there should be no trade for us unless the market does end up coming back into the upside of that red SNR. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could get buys. You can't see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, price was somewhere within here. I just broke it to the upside. It wasn't the best of confirmations in terms of the buy, but you can see that the market went to the upside and eventually still ended up coming back in within here at 430. So at least if you got the buys within this pullback right here, then at least you'd still need to manage your trade within this area right here because this was the high. And you can see that the market really generally held within that area. Today it's still attempting, to break that region to the upside. So today these are what the levels are going to be looking like. So also for this one, the buyers seem like they're coming in, which is good, but don't look for the buy now. And as much as the buyers are coming up aggressive, you still could find the sellers retaliating. So it's either the market breaks above this region to the upside, just like we discussed on the other one, then on the pullback, you still could get the buy somewhere within here. Something similar to this, it's just a matter of waiting. Give the market time, come back in. If it does come back in, well, good. If it doesn't, then it's okay. Remember, you're not here to force trades. So if the market doesn't give you what you need to see, you should be disciplined enough to actually walk away. So let's see what happens. You still could find the market coming back in within these levels. The levels today are a bit more extended. You do compare to what we had yesterday. Yesterday, they were a bit more compressed. Today, we've expanded them a little bit, but it's also based on what the story is telling us. So you still could find the market coming back in within here. There's a midpoint. somewhere within this area right here that you need to watch out for. And of course, that region at the top right there that we've already discussed. So make sure that you watch out for that. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten sales. Similar situation with today. Unfortunately, yesterday the sales were just not coming through. We did want to see the market break beneath this region to the downside to look for the sales. And you can see that the market just attempted but couldn't held above. And after that, you can see that the market went to the upside. The next best area to look for the sales was somewhere within this region right here. You can see that the buyers have really slowed down within this area, but the big sellers have also not yet quite showed up. So we'll be waiting to see what happens. So the areas are the same. The market hasn't really gone far and beyond the areas that we were watching out for yesterday. So let's see what happens. Maybe when the market comes back in within here, hopefully the buyers will give up and the sellers will regroup, you know, before we actually end up getting the market possibly doing something like that. I'm just thinking. So let's wait and see what happens within here. But remember that in case the market breaks and holds above that region, then there's a high probability we could be heading somewhere within this region or somewhere as close as possible within these areas, you know, as the sellers are looking for those much, much better prices. So just make sure that you watch out for that, as you also watch out for the times. So last but not least, for the Canadian dollar pairs, we do have the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Clearly can't see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, price was somewhere within here. Remember, I pointed out that based on how these sellers were coming down, maybe we did need to see some sort of a rollover phase happening within here, the market breaking to the downside or attempting to break to the downside, market holding above, and hopefully maybe at 3, that's when you find the market actually moving to the upside. And you can see that's exactly what happened. So the market rolled over. This was during the London session, came back in at exactly 3. It was back in within this area, and the market really took off to the upside, which was really good. Unfortunately, I missed out on this trade, I think, by 1 pip, somewhat down within there before the market took off to the upside. And I guess that's what we call the cost of precision. And you can see that, funny enough, the market still came back in, you know, within this region right here during the New York Stock Exchange. But unfortunately, I think at that point in time, I'd already given up, because when I saw the market all the way high up within here, I figured out the market had already gone, you know, only to come and find out that the market did actually come back in within this region and was still contained within the range. So let's see what happens today. So these are the 3 areas we'll be watching out for. More or less the same as what we did end up having yesterday. So in as much as the market has really attempted to break free of this region, we're still more or less contained. So we do have the range holding somewhere within here. In case the buyers do need a much better price, we're also going to be waiting to see what happens. Somewhere within these areas, you know, you still could find the market coming back in within here. We'll wait and see what happens. So also watch out. Still could find maybe another probe happening within this area right here, especially if the buyers are looking for much better prices so that they can break free of this region right here. Then it means that they will definitely have to incite more sellers to come in. And that will only happen if maybe they break this level to the downside and possibly show the sellers that the market is actually coming to the downside. Then maybe that might invite the sellers to really come in so that the market can take off to the upside, maybe even attempt, you know, to come challenge highs, you know, somewhere within this region. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But remember the red SNR at the bottom, that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our aggressive buying opportunities. So that's pretty much it for the card pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the yen pairs, mix and match them up real quick, see what they have to offer. So we'll start off with this one. This is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. Let me see what's happening there. Okay. So let me just go again. So we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So do watch out for these 3 areas right here. The market seems like it's already moving to the upside. So in terms of looking for the buying opportunities, just wait and see if you could get the market pulling back in within here. This one is almost similar to what happened yesterday on USD CAD. Well, just to go back to it, whereby the market at this point in time seemed like it was going. Of course, many people are chasing the buys. They are not aware that the market still can't come back in within this region right here. So for this one, in as much as the market has gone to the upside, we're getting so close within that seller's region. Even if you hit the buys here, you don't really have much room to move. So just make sure that you do actually either wait for the market to break above this region to the upside, or maybe if these sellers can actually push the market back in somewhere as close as possible within here, then you could get some proper buying opportunities within this region right here. So just make sure that you watch out for something like that, or maybe if the market does actually end up moving up, then hopefully the next buy should be somewhere within that region right there. Also watch out for the region at the bottom. Still could find the market coming back in within that area right there. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. We'll be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those three areas. Some good correlation that's happening with the yen pairs. In fact, most of the time the yen pairs normally tend to correlate very well. So for this one, let's see what happens. The market seems to have already tapped this region, which is okay, but you still can't find the sellers. Maybe, especially based on this push coming down, they still maybe could attempt to come in, break the previous low before the market really does end up turning to the upside completely. So you still could find the market coming back in within here. But if it doesn't, then we'll just have to wait and see. If we can get a nice proper breach and a pullback coming in within this region, then we could look for the buys. Right now, it's still a bit of a risk because we're not quite sure whether the market has really broken above this region or whether the market has just come back in for some sort of a retest. If it broke within this region to the downside. So just to get a bit more confirmation, maybe we need to see a bit more within this region right here, but also watch out for this area right there. Still could find the market coming back in within there. So moving on into the next yen pair. So this is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we will be trying to see whether we also can end up getting some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So this one to some extent seems like it's already come back into the upside. Let's see if we can get a nice choppy, pullback coming back in within here for us to actually end up timing the buying opportunities, especially if the sellers do show weakness, then that's good. Hopefully after the market does end up showing that this is some sort of a probe, especially if we do see evidence that the market is holding above there, then at least you could look for the buys within there. You could put your stops maybe somewhere within there. And of course, if you're a real cowboy on the charts and you know how to read what's going on within here, then you definitely could have your stop losses even tighter, just to make sure that you get some proper risk to reward as the market does end up going to the upside. So do watch out for that. But also remember this region right here. In case the market does break beneath this region and hold beneath it, then it means that the sellers will definitely be coming in lower, and maybe the buyers could be looking for much better prices, somewhere as close as possible within that region. So in case the market finds its way there, then at least you should also be ready for that. So the next yen pair, this is the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list, and we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one. So hopefully you can take note of those three areas. Similar situation with what we've seen with the rest of the yens. That push going to the upside, maybe a sign of the big boys starting to come in, which is good. Let's see what happens, because right now we're back in within this sort of sellers region scenario within here. So let's see what happens within this area. The sellers can actually push the market back in and actually end up coming in, a bit more or a bit less, stronger than they did the previous time, then that would be good. At least we could possibly end up timing some buying opportunities somewhere within there to actually end up coming up. And hopefully the next time when the buyers do come in, especially if you get the buyers down within here, hopefully the buyers should come in quite aggressively to take out, this area right here. In case they do end up coming in weaker than the previous time within here, then you might need to consider possibly closing some good amount of your trade within that region right there. And in case the market breaks to the upside and pulls back in within this area, if you're highly skilled, you definitely could jump back in on the trade within there and you could continue with the journey up. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Also, the SNR at the bottom, still can't find the market coming back in within there. There's a possibility it can. But the good thing about the yens is, if you see something on one, like we've looked at a good number of the yens, you can see that there's some good correlation that's happening. So if you see a pullback happening on one, just have a look at the others. If you're really good in terms of risk management, you could jump in on a number of yen pairs just by apportioning, a good amount of risk on each of them, and you could end up getting some good amount of pips. But also remember that it's a double-edged sword, which means that if things are good, then that's good for you. If things are bad and all of them fail and you're in on all of them, then you also need to brace yourself for impact, because, just make sure that it doesn't dent your account. But ideally, even if you're going to be looking for one yen pair, just by making sure that you've looked at the others, just to give you that confidence that the big boys are actually in. Even if you're just going to be taking one, it's also good, for your mental comfort, just to know that at least the big boys are in on the rest of the yens, even if you're not taking all of them. So you also could look at it like that. So for this one, these are the 3 areas. Hopefully you've taken note of them. Right now, the market just seems like it's about to break to the upside of this area, something almost similar to, I think, the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen, or the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen, where the market is just coming back in within here. We do need to see a bit more within this area right here. Right now, the market is just coming back in to possibly challenge these sellers within here, but we do need to see the market really break above that area and possibly hold, before we could actually end up executing some buys. So just give it a bit of time. If the market does come back into the downside and actually hold within here, then there's a possibility price could be coming back in somewhere within this region right here. So just make sure that you also do watch out for that. And also remember to watch out for the times, like we always point out, 10, 3, and 4:30. And no matter what you do, always trade and stick within your risk limits and within your risk parameters. So that's pretty much it for the yen pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the indices and the commodities. You can see that there isn't any change on those ones. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out, and an illustration of what to expect. So in the morning, when I'm looking at the charts at around this time yesterday, price was somewhere within here. I did point out that maybe we could have found the market coming back in within this region right here, to possibly look for the buys, to continue going up. But it seems that the buyers came in and continued to push the market to the upside. They really attempted to break free of this area, but they just couldn't. And you can see that the sellers really pushed the market to the downside. The market still came back in within this region. There was this SNR that I had pointed out that I was expecting maybe to give some sort of a reaction yesterday, but it seems that yesterday it wasn't quite in play. It's only today that it's really come into play, where you can see that the market has gone to the upside and it's holding within this region right here. And the buyers are struggling, to push the market and hold it above this region so that they can continue pushing the market to the upside. So for this one, the levels are the same. This one is just a minor SNR. Of course, doesn't mean that it's not a level that can give you some sort of interference, because even right now you can see that the market is holding within there. But the major levels where you should be looking to see whether you could get some buys, and also areas where you should be looking to manage your trades, are somewhere within here. So let's see what happens. Hopefully, if the market does come back in within this region, especially based on the fact that the sellers came in quite aggressively within here. The buyers, yes, they are giving some sort of issues, but they've not really retaliated fully. So there's a possibility these sellers could still attempt, to break their previous record, which is somehow within these regions right here. So don't be surprised in case the market does come back in once again. Possibly the buyers will need to regroup and come back in a much better way than what they're doing right now. So there's still a possibility price could come back in within this region right here. And you could find that maybe for it to do this, maybe it might need the London session, and maybe at around 3, 4:30, that's when the market could be somewhere within there. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Of course, you can see that the market is also starting to range to some extent. So you don't also really want to be getting your buying opportunities in the middle of the range. You want to get them at the extremes. When it comes to trading ranges, you want to get yourself at the top, buys at the bottom. You don't really want to be getting trades in between, because the risk to reward could be extremely tricky. So hopefully we can get the buys within here, targeting high up there, the better. Even if we get the buys here and we get issues within here, you still can manage on your way up. That's much better than looking for the buys within this region right here. So make sure that you watch out for that. And of course, also remember the region at the bottom. For as long as we're holding above that area, then the buyers should be to look for buying opportunities. So the next index that we look at is the Dow Jones. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to look and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. You can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, price was somewhere here. I pointed out that we did need to see a breach to the upside and maybe the market coming back in. The market did pull back in. You can see that at exactly 4:30 or thereabout, after the market went to the upside, pulled back in within this region, and after that attempted to go higher than this, but just couldn't. And you can see that the sellers really pushed the market to the downside quite aggressively. So for this one for today, we're still looking for buys. Can see that the market also tapped back in within this region, and the buyers, within this area seem like they're still holding the market. So these are the areas that we will be trying to see what does end up happening. Right now, the market has just broken above that region, or the semi-aggressive conservative region, to the upside. But we will need to see a bit more, because you can't see that in as much as they've broken to the upside, the sellers are still giving issues. So there's a possibility we could find the sellers maybe attempting to push the market to the downside. But if you can get the buyers really pushing the market to the upside, then the market actually holds within here, especially after this probe, the better. At least if you look for the buys within here, then it could be good to go. It also gives you an idea of where you could potentially put your stop. Because if you look for the buys right now, the only area you confidently can't put your stop loss is all the way down within here. And you can see that if you end up doing that, even if the market goes to the upside and you have your stop down here, the risk to reward is not really that great. So you're possibly better off just giving it a bit of time. Let's see what happens within here. You still could find the market even, especially if these sellers do decide to come back in. You could find that the market could be back in within here, maybe at around 334. Maybe them attempting to break their previous record. If they can't, then I guess at that point in time, you could find the market going to the upside. So just be keen and see what happens within that area there. If you're really good at reading the story, then at least you will know at what point you should be executing your buying opportunities. So moving on into the second last thing that we always look at, which is silver. Now for silver, yesterday and today, the bias is to look for buying opportunities. You can't see the three areas right there that I had pointed out. In the morning yesterday, when we were looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So we did want to either see the market come back in within this region, maybe break above this area. Because you can see that the buys in between here, the buyers were really struggling. Within this region right here, they attempted to push to the upside. The sellers right there came, pushed the market to the downside. The buyers were nowhere to be seen within here. In any case, by the time the market came back in within here, it was already quite late. It was around 8:39 p.m. our time, and you can't see that the market didn't really do anything. Today, during the Asian session, the big boys have attempted to push the market into this region right here. And hopefully we could get the market lifting off this area here. Maybe the market did actually need to tap in within this region before the buyers can actually show up. So it seems like they're just getting ready to come in, but they're not fully quite there yet. You can't see that the market broke to the downside, broke to the upside, broke to the downside. Right now it's just broken to the upside, but we do need to see the market actually hold within this region. So right now, we do need a bit more evidence that the market is actually holding within this region before we can actually end up executing our buying opportunities. But so far, at least the buyers do seem like they're really trying to fight because they've contained these sellers, who are coming down. We just need to see the evidence that the market is holding above that region. Then we could potentially try and see whether we could get some buys. But generally, you can see that within this area, we should be getting some buying opportunities happening. If not, and let's say the market breaks beneath this region to the downside and holds below, then I guess there's a possibility the market and the buyers could possibly be coming back in to look for the buying opportunities much lower, maybe somewhere within this region. So just make sure that you watch out for that. And of course, remember to watch out for the times, gold, silver, the Dow Jones and the NAS 100. Normally have a large tendency of moving a lot, especially during the US session. So in case things are really not moving during the London session, then just be a bit patient. Wait and see what happens during the US session. So moving on into the last thing that we always look at, which is gold. Now for gold, yesterday and today, the bias is to look for buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. I did point out that we did need to see the market break above this region to the upside and maybe look for the buys, on the pullback. And there was also this region right here that I was expecting maybe, the sellers would have pushed the market back down till then maybe would have looked for the buying opportunities there, but it all depended on how the sellers came in. Because remember that the market had gone up aggressively like this. And I pointed out that it wasn't a good idea to look for the buys there. Maybe on the pullback somewhere within here, the sellers didn't slow down within there. And consider the market came back in all the way till within this region right here. And you can see that there were quite a number of attempts, the buyers to break free of this region to the upside. Unfortunately, they couldn't. And you can see that the market was just fooling around within those two regions right there before the market once again came down to the downside. So maybe the buyers are still in pursuit of the proper prices. You can see there's some sort of retaliation happening within there. But you still can see that the sellers are also quite adamant. If you look at this push coming down and how the buyers have gone up, it seems that these sellers right here who are pushing the market down, they're still in the game. So hopefully on the second attempt, if they do attempt to go lower than this and they can't, I think at that point in time, we should be getting, the market reversing. So the three areas that we'll be watching out for, more or less the same as what we did end up having yesterday. So we have that region at the top, which is the extreme. And of course, the highest level that gold has gotten up until. So we'll be waiting to see what happens today, maybe during the interest rate decisions. Is there going to be history in the making whereby, when the interest rate decisions do actually end up coming out, are we going to be getting gold, reaching above this region to the upside and, making new highs? So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But at least for now, what we do know is that we do need to see the market maybe come back in within this region right here before we can possibly end up attempting any buys. We do need to see these sellers who are coming down slow down within this area right here. And of course, if that happens, then we could look for the buys. Just make sure you manage your trade maybe somewhere within this region. If we do break above that, on the pullback, still could actually end up looking for, more buying opportunities within there to actually end up going up higher. Possibly end up challenging that region right there. But remember that in case the market breaks and holds beneath this region to the downside, but go up to the 1 hour time frame, then you will see that gold also has a large probability of also coming down. There's a lot of room for it to move to the downside. So if we break beneath this region and the market actually holds beneath this area to the downside and starts to move away from that area, there's a possibility you could find the market could be in. And at that point in time, you could look for the sells. You could find the market coming back in within there. There's also this level right here, which you could find that may be today, especially considering the fact that we have the interest rate decisions coming out at 9. That's some high impact news event. You could find that the market could easily spike down, coming down within this region. So in case the market does break and hold beneath there, then also be ready for that. But at least for now, what we do know is that we should be looking for those buying opportunities. So we'll just time and see whether we can get the slowdown of the buyers happening within that area there. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything we're looking at. So let me see if there are any questions on the Q&A section real quick. So I see George Shega there. Good to see you, George. You're saying, hi, John and team. How significant a fair value gap in finding trading opportunities? Well, you can end up using them. But of course, now, most of the time, if you're talking about the regular gaps, they normally happen mostly, especially during the weekends and stuff. Of course, when you do have high impact news events, happening, then you also can end up, finding the gaps happening, and you could actually end up trying to fill them up. I remember those back in the day when we used to actually try and see whether, we could actually end up filling up the gaps. It does end up working sometimes it doesn't end up working, but it also depends on the broker that you're using, because it's not all brokers who actually end up getting gaps. There are sometimes you will see gaps on some of them actually don't, because it also depends on the liquidity providers that the brokers do actually end up having. So you will find that, especially the tier 1 brokers, they possibly won't have as many gaps because they have a lot of liquidity providers who are connected in the back office. But if you do end up getting gaps and you want to fill them up, definitely you can. We've done that before. It does end up working to some extent, but it also can end up backfiring on you. But of course, you still can end up looking for those opportunities. I don't think I would discourage you from doing that. You can end up doing that. I think it should be fine. So I see Isaac there, you're saying display gold. Yeah, so for gold, this is what it's going to be looking like. It's more or less the same as yesterday, but for as long as we're holding above that region right there, then we should still be looking for buying opportunities. So I hope that is clear for you, Isaac. So I don't see any more questions, which is perfectly fine. So hopefully you guys have taken note of everything. Remember, if you missed out on anything, or if you need to run through everything we've discussed, because there are a lot of pointers and things that we give. Sometimes those things do end up passing people, but if you listen to them a second time, then you really start to grasp things. So you can't end up doing that. You can't go and rewatch the rebroadcast of this on YouTube. And of course, when you're there, also remember to like and subscribe. Remember, there will be a lot of fundamentals today. So there should be a lot of fireworks. Just make sure that your risk is in check. We do have CPIs, and of course, we also do have the interest rate decisions that are going to be coming out much later on at around 9. So just make sure if you're going to be in on any trades, make sure that you also tighten up your risk management as much as possible. So I guess with that, happy trading, guys. Bye for now. Guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. So as always, may the pips be with you. God bless, and bye for now.